WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint, where power and politics collide and the tough questions get asked and answered.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. The North Carolina General Assembly entering the final stretch of its legislative session. Republican leaders able to push through a lot of legislation thanks to a supermajority both in the House and the Senate. Lawmakers able to get 50 different pieces of legislation into law. That includes 12-week restrictions on abortion, legalizing mobile sports betting, and authorizing gun owners to get a permit without going through the sheriff's office. And now, one of the most powerful lawmakers in the state is here to help preview what's still to come. Joining us now is the top leader in the North Carolina Senate, Phil Berger. He's held that position for some 13 years. Senator, welcome to Flashpoint. We appreciate it.
No, thank you. Good to be here.
All right, so with the countdown to the end of the session looming, in your mind as the Senate leader, what is your top priority for the General Assembly?
Clearly, the top priority at this point is to get the budget taken care of and to make sure that we've addressed those funding issues that are needed, and as part of that, to take another step as far as tax relief for the people of North Carolina.
What else has to happen with the budget? I know Medicaid expansion was tied into that, and that was a big step for not only Republicans, but also for the state of North Carolina. But I know the governor himself has expressed quite a bit of displeasure with the budget as it currently stands otherwise. What else has to happen as far as trying to find some agreement and compromise?
Yeah, so right now we've had our appropriations chairs, both the House and the Senate, working to address kind of the individual line items as far as appropriations are concerned. They also are working on what are called provisions. Those are explanatory provisions or parts of the budget that help articulate how the dollars that are being appropriated are to be administered. The big issues that are out there now is we have a fairly significant amount of what we call one-time money, and that money currently is allocated to certain reserves. So, for instance, we have a water and sewer reserve. We have a transportation reserve. We have a state capital infrastructure fund that is a reserve. And so we are still working on reaching agreement with reference to exactly how much money goes into each of those reserves. And then we'll work on exactly how those reserve dollars get allocated out of that reserve. That's one of the matters that we're still trying to resolve. The other has to do with the tax package and precisely what sort of tax relief, tax policy we're going to see in the budget.
Also in the news this week, the Senate passing sweeping changes when it comes to election laws, including some changes for voter registration and deadlines for absentee ballots. I know people have said in the past it's to prevent fraud, but it seems like fraud is kind of a non-issue. However, it does strike me like that absentee ballot thing, the deadline having to be, election day and not 3 or 4 days later when we all have to wait around. That to me, I think is a winning argument to a lot of folks because it just doesn't make sense of having to wait around. Is it to you a fraud issue, or is it just makes more common sense?
Yeah, so I think it's a confidence issue. The whole thing to me is about what steps can we take to enhance the confidence that people have in election outcomes. We've seen situations where in 2016, the Democrats were expressing concerns about whether or not Donald Trump actually won or Hillary Clinton won. And so in 2020, the many Republicans were concerned about and expressed doubts about whether or not the outcomes were accurate. So it's sort of a bipartisan thing that folks have indicated questions about elections. And so what we need to do is set up our election machinery in a way that enhances confidence, not erodes confidence. And if, as you said, if you have a situation where ballots keep coming in days, and at least in North Carolina, the way the Democrats on the Board of Elections did it last time, over a week after Election Day, that does not enhance confidence. And some would say, and I would tend to agree, that it has the potential to erode confidence in the outcome.
The Senate also looking to strip some power from the governor and shift it to the General Assembly when it comes to picking members of the State Board of Elections you just mentioned. I chatted with Pat McCrory last week on this show and asked him about that. I want you to take a listen to his response.
I do not support efforts to strip more power from the governor. One day, we Republicans will regret that when a new Republican gets into the governor's office. I believe in separation of powers and the authority of the executive branch to do the day-to-day operations of government at the federal level and the state level.
Is he wrong? Is this being short-sighted for next time there's Democratic control of the General Assembly?
I don't think it's being short-sighted, and I do think he's wrong. What we are doing is setting up, or at least making changes that are fully consistent with the Constitution of North Carolina. And just because a former governor or a group of former governors think that the governor's office ought to have a certain amount of power, that doesn't mean the Constitution says that. And so we believe, and we'll see, because I'm sure there'll be lawsuits filed, we'll see whether or not what we are doing will be viewed by the courts as consistent. And I think it is. I think actually if you read through the cases that generally are cited as by Governor McCrory and other governors, it is very clear that both Republicans and Democrats on the state Supreme Court have said that the power to appoint is not, under our Constitution, an executive function exclusively. And so we have multiple instances of boards that that make decisions that the governor is not the person that is in direct control.
Still come here on Flashpoint. Senator Berger weighing in on trying to find good faith compromise on deeply divisive issues like gender.